Mr. Brito, thank you for your company. Welcome along to the Late Show Live on GB News. First questions first. Can I ask you, please, when President Trump first instructed you for this case, and how angry is he feeling towards the BBC?
Well, we were recently retained to address this situation once we learned of what was transpiring. And with respect to the second question, the president is extremely frustrated, yet adamant in his belief that he is going to hold accountable those that engage in and peddle in false information and untruthful statements. And so he's upset about it for his own benefit and really for the community as a whole, given the fact that institutions such as the BBC have the ability and the free reign to engage in such defamatory conduct.
Okay, and of course the lawsuit is billed as being $1 billion, which is around £700 million roughly. What would President Trump settle at? Because, of course, we've had previous cases in the US with President Trump, ABC News, CBS, where he sued CBS, for example, for $10 billion and settled at $16 million. What would the figure be for the president to draw a line under this matter?
Well, the figure would be $1 billion is what would initially be sought in the event that the president is forced to proceed with litigation. If ultimately the lawsuit plays itself out, the damages will be based on the evidence that we establish and the harm that's been caused by the BBC's actions. And so it's a process where the president is going to lay out his demand and allow the evidence to establish and support the actual damages that he has suffered, that his reputation has suffered, and that the BBC has caused.
Okay, and that would happen, that case pursuing $1 billion would happen if, the BBC don't respond by Friday. What do you want them to respond with? What are you looking for? What is the president looking for by that Friday deadline?
Big tech has turned your phone into a surveillance device, harvesting your data, tracking your location, and selling your information to corporations. Unplugged built the Upphone to fight back. It's the only smartphone with hardware-level privacy protection, completely blocking data harvesting at the source. It features a physical kill switch that cuts power instantly when you want to go dark, giving you control big tech took away. Unplugged puts privacy and sovereignty first. The Upphone is built to British standards, designed to keep your data in your hands with independent servers, its own app center, and no corporate gatekeepers. You can access what you choose. No censorship, no app bans, just freedom. Everyone else is playing by big tech's rules. Unplugged rewrote them. The Upphone runs on an operating system with 0 backdoors and a firewall that blocks thousands of tracking attempts every single day. The Upphone includes a host of unique security features. The device can be set to have its memory wiped regularly, and if someone demands your PIN code, well, you can give them a false PIN that will wipe the device. It's called Emergency Reset. Privacy isn't a feature with Unplugged, it is the foundation. To get yours today, click the link in the description now.
The letter completely states our position with respect to what transpired, as well as what the president seeks, which are 3 things. Number 1, a full and complete retraction of the defamatory statements made by the BBC. 2, an apology to the president for engaging in such intentional and biased reporting. And 3, a monetary settlement proposal to be made by the BBC in order to remedy the financial harm that they caused the president to suffer as a result of their intentional conduct.
Okay, and if they don't respond, you'll pursue this case for the full $1 billion, which you argue is worthy of the reputational and financial harm, yes?
If they don't respond, then we will be left with no alternative but to enforce the president's legal and equitable rights, and it'll be up to the president to decide how and when he seeks to do so.
Okay. Of course, the president he's a big Anglophile. He loves Great Britain. His mother was Scottish as well. And I'm sure he's aware, and you're aware, Mr. Brito, that the BBC is funded by licence fee payers, aka the British public. It's basically a TV tax in the UK funded by the people of Britain. Does that fact weigh on his decision on the number that you'd settle for? Are you looking for balance where you want to make a statement, you'd settle for a number, but not want to, I guess, sting the great British public who ultimately will be paying any settlement or any fine should it go that far in court?
The president is clearly not seeking to sting or damage the consumers and the public as a whole. In fact, his decision to take legal action and to enforce his rights is not simply for his benefit, but for the community as a whole. Because if the BBC and other institutions can engage in this sort of conduct and damage his reputation and engage in such nefarious conduct, it can happen to anyone.
And I guess, Mr. Brito, if this came to court, the BBC would argue that the president was being insightful. Just playing devil's advocate here. He was being insightful. He was liable for what happened on October the 6th. And I think there was a report some years ago suggesting that if he wasn't the president now, then the DOJ would have enough to go after him on that front. What would your response be to those kind of claims?
The kind of claims that I'm hearing you ask about, if the BBC were to avail itself of those claims, would be highly unfortunate because they would not be grounded in truth. The president clearly was not inciting anyone, and anyone who reads the transcript of what the president actually said, as opposed to what the BBC wanted the viewers to believe he said, would make it abundantly clear that what the president was asking for was a peaceful demonstration, was not seeking to incite any sort of violence, and the broadcast that was aired by the BBC tried to intentionally alter that. And so if, in fact, the BBC seeks to take a position that what the president actually did was to incite violence, that will be demonstrated to be demonstrably false and will only compound the problems that the BBC is confronted with right now.
Okay, and should it go that far, Mr. Brito, the $1 billion which the BBC, you are asking of the BBC, should it go that far, potentially could bring the corporation down? It was, of course, once known and respected worldwide as a renowned media source, a trusted source of truth. Some may argue that's changed over recent years. Would the president have any issue with potentially bringing down the BBC in that manner?
I can't speak for the president as to what his feelings would be with regard to that, but I can note two things. Number one, decisions have consequences, and the act of the BBC was an intentional one, and there are consequences to that. And number two, the BBC tried to bring down the president. That is manifest. And so they need to be called to task for the conduct that they engaged in.
And can I ask you, please, do you think the president, and maybe he's told you verbally, will the BBC be punished in terms of their access to the White House now, maybe flying on Air Force One? Has the president expressed any sign of frustration with the BBC on that front to you and suggested that, maybe the access that they are given privilege to at the moment or previously may be reduced? Is he that angry with the BBC that could happen?
I have not had that specific conversation with the president. And presumably, if any of that occurs, we will all see it in real time, but I'm not privy to information that is what is going to take place.
And Mr. Brito, I have to ask, has he, of course, Caroline Levitt, the press secretary yesterday, said everybody should watch GB News. In your conversations with the president since he instructed you to pursue this case against the BBC, has he mentioned GB News at all?
He has, and I know he's fond of GB News, and I think he appreciates the treatment that he receives on GB News, and we hope that it will continue to be fair and accurate reporting.
Just finally, what's your message? What is the president's message to the BBC right now? The executives will surely be watching this interview tonight on The Late Show Live. What's your message to them? What's the president's message to the BBC right at this moment?
I think the message is fairly transparent in that the president will hold accountable those that transmit false and fake information. He believes that there is an institutional bias that's been reflected in the reporting about him, that there has been a lack of impartiality with respect to the reporting that has been engaged in. I think that there's been an intentional ignorance of evidence of bias within the BBC that needs to be remedied through governance arrangements that are fair and appropriate. And I think that those are the messages that we're trying to convey to them at this point in time.